So, you want to own a lawn aeration business, not a landscaping company, not a mowing service. You want to buy a machine that punches holes in dirt, load it into a truck, drive to someone's house, walk back and forth across their yard for 20 minutes, and then charge them $150 for a lawn that looks worse than when you showed up. And the crazy part? This might be the single best dollar-per-hour trade in the entire home services industry. Let's talk about what it actually costs, what it actually pays, and why a business built on poking holes in the ground is quietly more profitable than most things people go to college for. First, the machine. A commercial walk-behind core aerator, which is the only type worth owning, runs between $2,000 and $4,000 new. The Turfco XT5, which is the one you'll hear about in every forum and every Facebook group, costs around $3,000 to $3,750 depending on the dealer. The Billy Goat PL series reciprocating aerator, which pulls cores so aggressively that operators say it will pull a plug out of wood, runs around $3,500 to $4,000. A used unit in decent shape, if you can find one, goes for $1,500 to $2,500. If you want to go faster and cover more ground, a stand-on aerator like the Billy Goat AE1300H costs $10,000 to $12,000. The Skag Airstorm, which is basically a commercial-grade ride-on that aerates at walking speed with a 30-inch tine width, is about $14,200. You do not need a stand-on to start. You need a walk-behind and a truck. If you already have the truck, your total startup cost for a functional aeration business is somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000. That includes the machine, a few sets of replacement tines, a small trailer or truck ramp, and a handful of yard signs. That is not a typo. The startup cost is lower than a semester at a state university. Now, the price list. The average cost to aerate a residential lawn in the United States is between $100 and $200 for a standard quarter-acre yard. Some markets go higher. The Northeast regularly charges $150 to $300. The South trends lower, around $75 to $150. If you add overseating, which you should always offer because it costs you almost nothing, and the customer will say yes about 60% of the time, the ticket jumps to $160 to $425 for 10,000 square feet. Here's where the math starts to look ridiculous. A quarter-acre lawn takes about 15 to 25 minutes to aerate with a walk-behind machine. If you are efficient with your routing, meaning you clustered your jobs by neighborhood instead of driving across town, you can realistically do 8 to 12 residential aerations in a single working day. Take the conservative end. 8 lawns. $150 each. That is $1,200 in a day. Your fuel cost is maybe $25. Your tine wear is negligible. You have no material costs unless you're overseeding, in which case the seed costs you about $15 to $20 per lawn, and you charged the customer $60 to $100 for it. Your gross margin on aeration alone, before overhead, is above 80%. Go ahead and compare that to mowing, which runs 15 to 25% net margins on a good day and requires you to show up every single week. Aeration is a once-a-year service. You show up, you destroy their yard with a machine that rips out thousands of little soil plugs and leaves them scattered across the grass like someone detonated a dirt grenade. And then you tell the homeowner that those plugs will break down in 2 to 3 weeks and their lawn will be thicker and healthier than it has ever been. And the homeowner thanks you because they just watched you do something that looked difficult and technical, even though the machine does almost all of the work. If you're not subscribed yet and you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to subscribe. It helps more than you think. Now here's the part that changes everything. The season. Aeration is not a 12-month business. It is barely a 4-month business if you're lucky. In the northern half of the United States, the primary aeration window for cool season grasses is early fall, roughly September through mid-November. There is a secondary window in early spring, maybe March through May, but fall is where the rail volume is. In the south, warm season grasses like Bermuda and zoysia aerate best in late spring and early summer, so May through July. That means the core earning window for most aeration operators is roughly 8 to 12 weeks long, maybe 16 weeks if you service both spring and fall in a northern market. This is the trap, and it is the reason most people never start an aeration business, even though the per-job economics are extraordinary. You are building a business that earns most of its annual revenue in a window roughly the length of a school semester. Every dollar you make in those 12 weeks has to carry you through the other 40, which means you have exactly two options: sell enough volume in those 12 weeks to fund the entire year, or pair aeration with other seasonal services and build a year-round operation. Most successful aeration operators choose the second option. They aerate in the fall, overseed alongside it, do leaf cleanups through November and December, pivot to snow removal in the winter if they're in a cold climate, and then offer spring aeration and fertilization before mowing season begins. A few install holiday lights in November and December because the margins are absurd and the customer base overlaps almost perfectly. The first option, pure aeration, is harder than it sounds. To gross $100,000 from aeration alone at $150 per job, you need to complete 667 aerations. Spread over an aggressive 16-week season, that is about 42 jobs per week, or roughly 8 to 9 per day, 5 days a week, for 4 straight months, with no rain days, no equipment breakdowns, and no gaps in your schedule. It is doable. Solo operators have reported pulling in between $50,000 and $100,000 in a single fall season, but it requires filling every available slot for the entire window, and it requires having enough customers lined up before the first week of September, not during it. This is the actual business, not the aerating, the selling. Your machine sits in your garage 11 months of the year. It generates zero revenue sitting there. The entire business model is the ability to fill a compressed window with paying customers, execute efficiently, and then survive the off-season. Let's talk about what it costs to actually run this thing. Insurance. General liability for a lawn care operation runs about $40 to $55 per month, or roughly $500 to $650 per year for a basic $1 million policy. If you hire even one employee, add workers' compensation, which averages $140 per month for landscaping operations. That jumps your insurance bill to around $2,200 to $2,400 a year. The injury rate should give you pause. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that grounds maintenance workers, the category that includes lawn care and landscaping, have a fatality rate of about 19 deaths per 100,000 workers. That is 5 times the national average for all private industries. The most common causes are transportation incidents, being struck by equipment, and falls. Overexertion injuries, primarily back and shoulder damage, are so common in this line of work that they barely register as news. You are pushing a 200-pound machine across uneven ground for 8 to 10 hours a day. Your body is the most expensive piece of equipment in this business, and it does not come with a warranty. Vehicle costs. If you already own a truck or SUV with a trailer hitch, your vehicle cost is maintenance and fuel. If you need to buy one, a used pickup truck capable of hauling an aerator runs $8,000 to $15,000. A small open trailer costs $800 to $1,500 new. Business registration. LLC filing fees are $50 to $500 depending on your state. A basic business bank account is free. A Google business profile, which is the single most important marketing tool you will ever use, is also free. Marketing. Door hangers and yard signs are the standard playbook. 1,000 door hangers cost about $70 to $100 from an online printer. You target neighborhoods with established lawns. You hang them on every door in a radius around a confirmed job, and you let proximity do the selling. There is a specific tactic that experienced aeration operators swear by. You aerate a lawn, leave the plugs sitting on the grass, and put a yard sign at the curb. The neighbors see a lawn covered in what looks like soil confetti, with a sign that says, "Your neighbor just aerated, call for a free quote." It looks like something happened. People walk over and stare. They call. This is the closest thing to viral marketing that exists in blue-collar work. Total overhead for a lean solo operation running aeration as a primary service with no employees comes to roughly $3,000 to $5,000 per year in fixed costs. insurance, registration, basic marketing, Tyne replacement, and fuel, which means if you grow $60,000 in a fall season, your net before taxes is somewhere between $45,000 and $55,000 from about 12 weeks of work. That is not a typo either. Now let's talk about why this sounds too good to be true. Because if the margins are this high and the barrier to entry is this low, why isn't everyone doing it? 2 reasons. Reason 1, the window is brutal. 12 weeks sounds manageable until you realize that every aeration operator in your market is competing for the same 12 weeks. You are not competing on price or quality, because frankly, most lawns cannot tell the difference between a mediocre aeration job and a great one. You are competing on timing and availability. The customer who calls you on October 1st needs the job done in October, not November. If your schedule is full, they call someone else. If it rains for a week, you lose a week of revenue that you can never get back. Aeration operators describe the fall season the same way tax accountants describe April. It is a controlled panic. You work every available daylight hour, skip weekends, pray for dry weather, and try to cram enough revenue into a shrinking window to carry you through the winter. The physical toll is real. Walk behind aerators vibrate constantly. The tines jam on rocks and tree roots. You are loading and unloading a 200-pound machine in and out of a truck 8 to 12 times a day, and you are doing all of this while the temperature drops and the days get shorter. There's a reason 70% of landscaping businesses fail within 18 months, according to the 2024 State of the Landscape Labor Market report. It is not because the work doesn't pay, it is because the cash flow does not cooperate. You earn in bursts and spend year-round. More than 82% of small business failures are tied to cash flow mismanagement. And there is no industry where cash flow management matters more than one, where your revenue arrives in a single seasonal dump. Reason 2, the industry you are entering is enormous, fragmented, and quietly dominated by companies that will never compete with you directly, but will absolutely shape the market you operate in. The U.S. landscaping services industry hit $188.8 billion in 2025 revenue. That is not a niche. That is bigger than the movie industry. There are more than 690,000 landscaping businesses in this country, employing over 1.4 million people. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects 171,000 new job openings per year in grounds maintenance through 2034. The largest single player is TruGreen, which reported $1.4 billion in sales and held about 34% of the U.S. residential lawn treatment market. They operate in 48 states from 250 branches. They spend over $80 million a year on marketing alone. You will never compete with TruGreen. But here's the thing. TruGreen doesn't aerate. Not really. Their model is fertilization, weed control, and pest management. They sell chemical application programs on annual contracts. Aeration is an upsell, and it is not their core business. This is the gap. The actual aeration market is still dominated by small operators. 1 or 2 people, a truck, a machine, and a phone. The reason is that aeration cannot be scaled the same way chemical application can. You cannot spray a lawn in 3 minutes and move on. You have to physically walk the machine across every square foot of turf. It is labor-bound, not chemistry-bound, which means the big companies largely leave it alone, and the small operators who show up and do the work get to keep the margins. Which brings us to the part of this nobody talks about. You are building a business on top of an American obsession that is, by almost any rational measure, insane. There are roughly 40 to 50 million acres of lawn in the continental United States. That is an area larger than New England. Turfgrass is the single largest irrigated crop in America. Bigger than corn, bigger than wheat, bigger than everything. Lawn irrigation alone accounts for nearly 9 billion gallons of water per day, which is almost a third of all residential water use in this country. Americans spend somewhere between $60 and $150 billion a year maintaining grass, not growing food, not producing anything. Maintaining a decorative plant that originated as a European aristocratic flex got imported to the colonies was mass-produced in identical suburban lots by developers like Levitt and Sons after World War II, and is now enforced by homeowners associations that can fine you, line your property, and in documented cases have you arrested for letting it grow past 8 inches. In Grand Prairie, Texas, a man served jail time rather than pay a $1,700 fine for refusing to mow his lawn for 20 years. In Upland, California, a homeowner faced $4,000 in fines and 6 months in jail for not watering his grass during a drought. In Canton, Ohio, the city council unanimously passed a law making a second high grass violation a misdemeanor punishable by 30 days in jail. You can go to jail in this country for not performing lawn maintenance. Let that register. This is the machine you are plugging into. 40 million acres of culturally mandated, legally enforced HOA-policed grass that must be maintained, and a population of homeowners who have been trained since birth to believe that a green, uniform, weed-free lawn is a direct reflection of their character, their work ethic, and their value as a neighbor. You are not selling aeration. You are selling compliance with a cultural expectation so deeply embedded in the American psyche that people will pay you $150 to poke holes in their yard rather than risk the judgment of the family across the street. This is why the business works. The demand is not rational, it is social. And social demand does not disappear in a recession. It gets stronger because the one thing a person will not allow during financial hardship is for their lawn to look worse than their neighbor's. Now the labor question, because this is where the industry gets genuinely dark. There is a reason your lawn is affordable to maintain. It is not because the work is easy, it is because the work is done, disproportionately, by immigrant labor, including a significant number of H-2B visa holders who are legally tied to their employer and cannot easily switch jobs, quit, or negotiate wages. The H-2B temporary worker visa program allows U.S. employers to hire foreign nationals for seasonal work. There are 66,000 H-2B visas available per year, split into 2 halves. In 2017, landscaping and groundskeeping workers accounted for 45% of all H-2B visas issued. About a quarter of National Association of Landscape Professionals member businesses rely on the program. The demand for these visas exceeds the supply by such a wide margin that spots are awarded by lottery. Companies that do not win the lottery face a choice: refuse work, hire locally at wages that American workers actually accept, or hire workers without authorization. In 2012, a St. Louis landscaping company owner named Robert Brake was sentenced for fraudulently obtaining H-2B visas to support his operation. His company paid a $145,000 forfeiture. The entire system is built on a workforce that is structurally disadvantaged. The employer pays for the visa, the flight, the housing. The worker arrives legally but is dependent on that employer for continued legal status. If the job is miserable, if the hours are punishing, if the pay is at the legal minimum, the worker's options are limited. Leave and you lose your visa. Complain and you risk not being invited back next season. This is the hidden subsidy behind affordable lawn care. Thuki, margins are real. The labor model that supports those margins across the broader industry is a conversation most operators prefer not to have. If you are running a solo aeration operation, none of this applies to you directly. You are the labor. But the moment you scale, the moment you hire your first crew, you enter a market that has normalized wages that most American-born workers will not accept for physically demanding outdoor labor. And the companies that built the industry this way are the ones who set the price expectations your customers now consider normal. You benefit from a pricing structure that was built on cheap labor, even if you yourself are not using cheap labor. Think about that. Let's talk about the machines one more time, because there is a technology story here that almost nobody outside the industry knows about. For decades, lawn aeration meant a drum-style machine. Heavy, aggressive, slow. The Ryan Lawn Air was the industry standard for years, and using one was a physical ordeal. You muscled it across the lawn, it jammed on rocks, it was heavy to transport, and it beat you up. Then reciprocating aerators changed the game. Instead of a rotating drum, a reciprocating aerator uses a set of individual coring tines that punch in and out of the ground independently. The machine is lighter, more maneuverable, pulls cleaner cores, and is dramatically easier to operate. The Billy Goat PL series and the Turfco XT5 are the two machines that effectively replaced the old drum models, and they cut the physical toll of the job roughly in half. Stand-on aerators took it further. A machine like the Billy Goat AE1300H or the Skag Airstorm lets one operator aerate a quarter-acre lawn in as little as 15 minutes, standing on the machine instead of walking behind it. That speed increase is what makes high-volume aeration profitable as a standalone service. The math does not work at 4 lawns a day. It works at 10. The technology progression, from drum to reciprocating to stand-on, is what turned aeration from a back-breaking side gig into a legitimate business model. Each step made the job faster, less physically punishing, and more profitable per hour. If you are starting today, a new walk-behind reciprocating aerator at $3,000 to $4,000 will pay for itself in 20 to 30 jobs. At $150 per job, that is $3,000 to $4,500. You could conceivably pay off the machine in a single week of full bookings. After that, the machine is pure margin. Your cost per job is fuel, time wear, and your time. Everything else is profit. All right. Let's run the final numbers. Scenario 1. You start lean. Solo operator. Walk behind aerator. Your existing truck. Fall-only operation in a northern market. Startup cost. $3,500 for the machine, $500 for insurance, $200 for marketing materials, $150 for LLC and registration. Call it $4,500, all in. You work a 12-week fall season, averaging 6 jobs per day, 5 days a week. That is 360 jobs. At $150 average, you gross $54,000. Subtract $5,000 in operating costs. You net around $49,000. From 12 weeks of work, no degree, no certification, no office. Scenario 2. You add overseeding to every aeration job at an additional $80 per lawn. Your seed cost is about $18 per lawn. 65% of your customers say yes. That is 234 upsells at $62 profit each. An additional $14,500. Your total net is now roughly $63,500 from 12 weeks. Scenario 3. You add a spring season, do leaf cleanups in the fall shoulder weeks, and pick up snow removal in the winter. Your annual net as a solo operator climbs to somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000, depending on your market and how aggressive you are with scheduling. Scenario 4, you buy a stand-on aerator at $12,000, hire 1 employee at $18 an hour, and run 2 machines. Your revenue roughly doubles. Your costs increase by about 30 to 40%. You net somewhere between $100,000 and $140,000 per year. For a business, you started with less than $5,000. If you are enjoying this breakdown, subscribe to the channel. We do this every week. So, what is the catch? The catch is you. Your back, your knees, your willingness to work 10-hour days for 12 straight weeks in weather that is getting colder by the day. Your ability to sell in July and August for work that happens in September and October. Your discipline to save the money you make in the fall so you can survive January and February without income. The business model is almost embarrassingly simple. The execution is a grind. And here is the honest kicker that makes this whole video a little absurd. The average American homeowner could rent a core aerator from Home Depot for about $80 to $120 a day, aerate their own lawn in about an hour, and save $100. Almost none of them do, because the lawn is not about the lawn. It never was. It is about the signal. It is about looking like the kind of person who takes care of things. And the easiest way to look like that kind of person is to pay someone else $150 to poke holes in your dirt while you watch from the kitchen window. That is the entire business model. You are selling status maintenance to a nation that can be fined, leaned, and jailed for having grass that is too tall. The startup cost is a semester of community college. The margins are better than most software companies. The work will break your body if you are not careful, and the demand will never ever go away because America decided 100 years ago that a green lawn is a moral obligation and nothing about that has changed. Go buy an aerator or don't. Either way, your neighbor already did.